All right. Let's call this meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilman Sachsenheimer.
Here.
Councilwoman Cleveland.
Present.
Councilwoman Smith. Councilman Evans. Absent. Councilman Hogg.
Here.
Councilman Nelson. Absent. Councilwoman Rosso. Here. Councilwoman Campbell. Here.
Thank you. Well, we were to have a presentation by Mr. Scott Meyer from Baker Tilly, and I'm rather surprised that he's not here. But I'm hoping he still shows. And there's
He might
some
be lost.
traffic or something,
Yeah, traffic.
And before we get to the other agenda items, I just want to do a little housekeeping. One of our council members approached me with a concern, and it was a valid concern because I've had the same myself, about how we present ourselves in an open public meeting when folks are in the audience. And I think we have to be careful maintaining the proper decorum of a meeting. Too many side conversations, and sometimes there's some sniping. And I think what will really help is if any time there's a comment to be made, it's always addressed to the chair. Rather than have a conversation between yourself, if there's something to say, it's for everybody to hear, so all your comments come to the chair. And if you need to communicate, I would encourage everybody, bring a pencil and a pad. If you need to scribble a note to the person next to you, just do so. And I think the meetings will run a lot smoother. I do walk a fine line, trying not to be rude, but keep the meeting going, but I do intend on using the gavel a little bit more, just to keep the meetings focused on agenda items. So I hope nobody's insulted by that. Moving on. Discussion of the sale of vacant properties. I don't know if everybody had a chance to look over Sam's plan or not before you got here, but I don't think we should plan on making a lot of money selling some of these vacant lots. I'd be happy if they were just owned by a private person that would maintain them. Then they get back on the tax rolls and we're not mowing them every summer. So the idea was that we would approach adjoining property owners, set up a sealed bid process, a minimum bid which would really be a couple $100 if it's 10% of assessed value. And then let the two property owners bid on it. And we could sell them without clearing, without having to complete this quiet title process. That would be their problem. Any comment? Go ahead, Steve.
Is 1002 the one that's next to Sinclair?
That's correct.
I would like to see that sell it in conjunction when we hopefully will sell Sinclair, like a package thing. Unless a neighbor of it wants to buy it, then I don't have a problem. That way someone takes care of it. But other than that, I would like to see that one potentially sell as a group when we sell the building, potentially.
I can see a little issue with that because the Sinclair is zoned commercial and that house is zoned residential.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it would require a zoning change.
I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think if we can get more
Right,
bang for
I
the
mean,
buck
yeah,
because,
it would make some sense.
yeah,
but-
that's all.
That does present a problem.
It does. Yeah.
Do we own this St. Clair spot?
Yeah.
We gonna do something with that, or we haven't thought about it?
Well,
Oh, this is-
we'd like to sell it. We hired an appraiser to give us appraisal both on the building across the street and Sinclair, and he just never came through. He was
We never
commercial.
paid him either.
We didn't pay him either, fortunately. Yeah. Excuse me. So Sinclair is getting an appraisal and put it on the market. And we've got some updates on some, when we go into closed session, there's a couple of real estate issues that we can talk about.
Okay.
We don't want to say things that may cause us not to get the most, the highest dollar amount for what we're selling. So, the other thing is, if you've had a chance to look at it, or can look at it between now and the next meeting, Sam's plan was to bring every sale to the council for approval. If you're good with the plan, I would like to bring a resolution to the council meeting and just grant him the authority to sell them to the, either the highest bidder or the purchaser that would bring the best benefit to the city of Normandy. And the reason I mention that is Karen and Steve have a builder that they are very excited about. They took a house on Blandford that was a moldy, nasty, it was bad. And it's a good looking house now. So I think to give priority to somebody like that, we could keep it simple. Sam, what was the term you had for going into an exclusive agreement? I don't know that we would need to do that if we just gave a couple of them at a time and.
Right, I think that there's two different routes. We could enter into an exclusive development type agreement, or when we sell a house, he's just kind of a preferred vendor, or we know that he's actually gonna do something with the house and take that into account when we're selecting who we sell it to.
Could that be a condition that they're going to develop it, and if not, like the land banks have that clause that, if it was sold and it wasn't being developed, then there's a repercussion with that?
Yes. Yeah, that was
So,
discussed.
yeah. And would that be in the,
We could do something like that on any of the houses. We have actually done that in the past, from my understanding. It's just a matter of, do we want to go down that road? Because generally how we do it is you give them a set amount of time to bring it up to minimum housing code, and then if they don't, it reverts back to the city, the
yeah,
ownership.
I think, but it's protecting us, don't you think? I mean, so we're gonna sell it and then it sits there abandoned, they're not developing it, it's back to the original problem.
Right.
The, and then 10% is so low. For all the taxes we've been paying on these properties.
We don't pay taxes.
Oh, you don't pay
Yeah.
taxes?
Yeah.
It's still kind of low, it just,
Well,
to buy something.
I will tell you, for example, a vacant lot in Burdell Hills, the one on Olean, for example. For a contractor to come in, buy that property, build a
Oh,
house,
I see.
they'd be invested in it probably way more than what they could sell that house for.
Absolutely.
It's a vacant lot and it's a tiny vacant lot.
Yeah.
If we could just get rid of it, just to get it off our books, and have somebody else mowing it and enjoying a little green space.
Like, that would be incentive for the neighbors to buy it then if it's that cheap.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So,
Yeah.
with the, if we did an executive development
Aha.
or a vendor.
What's up?
If we did an executive development or a preferred vendor, would you have to like have would they be required to have a contract or saying like after this long, then this has to happen, or if we did an ordinance, like you were talking about?
We could do whatever the council wants us to do. We could put whatever terms you think are right.
Where are we at now?
We're talking about selling, properties.
Oh, okay.
And unloading some of these vacant lots.
Yes.
And, what kind of restrictions do we wanna put on selling these buildings? If we sell one to if we have a preferred contractor, we sell him a house, and we don't put it on the open market, we just sell it at an agreed-to price, do we want to put restrictions
Yes.
that it has to be in either completed or passes a minimum housing code that we have by a particular date?
I would say
Are there
so.
some kind of penalty, maybe a cash penalty initially, and then at some point it just reverts back to the city? It has to be a generous time, though,
It
because
has to, I would say at
So
least a
wait,
year.
I wasn't.
Oh, go ahead.
So do you have like a sample of what that would look like? Like if we did enter into like an ordinance, like what that ordinance would
I don't have anything in
So,
writing.
if we were to enter into a development agreement, we previously do have a development agreement on the books. I don't know if we'd want to use it as a sample. We probably want to maybe start fresh.
Please.
What did you
But
describe
if we
that?
were just to kind of treat them as a preferred vendor, then there wouldn't necessarily be a contract, but we could put the right of reverter, which is kind of what we were talking about, the minimum housing code, or it comes back. We could put that on any deed. It's just gonna make it slightly less attractive to buyers, but I don't think it's unreasonable at all.
But like, will we have like an idea, should I talk to you or you?
Well, I'm sorry,
Should I talk to Sam or you?
about this?
Yeah.
I'm a chair, so, yeah.
So, would we have a, like, an agreement that kind of gives like a basic scope of what we need to have, or like, you know what I mean?
Well, and again, we could make this as restrictive as we choose to make it. Or we could give the guy a couple houses at a time, and if he doesn't perform, we don't deal with him anymore. Whatever you guys, simpler makes it more attractive. The more restrictive it is, it's more protection for us, but less attractive
But
for,
with the preferred vendor, that's a different type of,
yeah, we could just choose to use a
and he
particular.
wouldn't have any restrictions on it.
No, I would still think, I would like to put some restrictions on him either way.
So either way, it would be
Yeah,
restrictions.
I would like to say, look, if you don't do something with this house, it comes back to the city of Normandy.
So if I may,
Go ahead.
I don't want to go too much into the detail on this in an open session, but there is a previous development agreement that the city entered into with another LLC. And that agreement, this was back in 2019, that agreement provided for the city to purchase a number of probably 20 to 30 properties at a tax sale, transfer them to the developer, and the developer would redevelop them and sell them. Sam and I have been looking through the documents, and luckily, it seems that most of the properties were never actually transferred to this developer, but there are 6 properties that were, and nothing was ever done with them. And so now we are in the process of trying to, look into getting those properties back, so we can maybe sell them to somebody else who's willing to do something with them. There is a right of reverter on the quitclaim deeds that the city recorded when the city transferred those properties to this developer. And in doing some research just yesterday on this issue, actually, how a reverter would work would basically, the city would have to, the way, for example, the reverters are drafted on these deeds that I've been looking at, the city would have to give 30 days written notice to the developer stating that you have failed to, develop these properties in accordance with the terms of the deed. We plan to exercise our right of reverter within 30 days. And then the city would file, after the 30 days pass, the city would file an affidavit of reverter and record that. Problem is, next time the city goes to sell that problem, well, it would be a problem. Next time it goes to sell that property, a buyer might be skeptical of title. If all that is there is this affidavit of reverter, because it's just not very strong proof of title. So the city might still have to go through the quiet title process even after exercising the reverter to get the property back, to clear away that title. Does that, it's maybe a little in the weeds, but in general, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in this particular, and again, I don't want to go into too much detail
Yeah.
on this particular developer, in case they're watching, but I am going to reach out to them to see if we can come to some sort of agreement without having to go through, but it is an option.
Okay.
Is there,
No, go ahead.
is there a way that you,
Go
who do I
ahead.
talk to?
No, you're fine. Just go ahead.
Is there a way that you can, put in the terms that they will relinquish the title without having to go through this quiet?
You would still have, there's still the enforceability issue, right? At the end of the day, you can get someone to agree to anything, And if then, at the end of the day, they refuse to do it, well, you still have to get some other enforcement mechanism involved.
Okay.
So, that's not to say that redevelopment agreements are a bad idea or that they can't do a lot of good. But just like the mayor suggested, maybe it is a good idea to start small with like a test run on a few properties with a preferred vendor, and then maybe look at a larger redevelopment agreement involving more properties. So we don't jump in head first and then get stuck with a mess. Because unfortunately, prior iterations of the city have had an issue with entering into redevelopment agreements or a TIF or, things that just go nowhere, right? And so we'd hate to find ourselves doing that again.
Agreed.
So let's start with the vacant properties.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
All of these quiet titles, or do we have the?
some of them are in the process of.
Okay.
And it'll say, there'll be notes on
Yeah, I
it.
was looking for that.
Oh, you may not have that page.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Do we have the title to any of these properties?
So there's two pages. The first one is a vacant
Okay,
lot
yeah.
page, which does not have the status of the title because they're vacant lots. But the ones with houses on them do have the quiet title status.
Okay.
Contested means,
And that's just a quiet title status. We don't actually have the title yet, correct?
well, we bought it at tax, most of these at tax sale.
Okay.
So, but the title's clouded,
That's what I mean.
So-
Yeah.
yeah, we don't have clear title.
Okay.
So,
They would be
go ahead,
purchasing-
Debbie.
They would be purchasing it knowing that the title.
In
the
some
quiet
cases,
title,
yes.
And if it's not being sold, we'd continue to try to get rid of that quiet title?
I think my suggestion would be leave it up to the property owner to deal
Well,
with.
no, if it's not being, if no one's buying it, we would just continue to try to get rid of that quiet title?
Oh,
So it's
as
now-
long as we still own it.
Right,
Again, that's up to how much money do you want to spend to acquire a title on a vacant lot that you're willing to sell for?
no, but
A
I mean,
discount.
if it's not being sold, if people aren't interested in it, would that be another incentive, is to keep working
I
on the
think that would
quiet
be
title?
something we could assess if it doesn't
Yeah,
sell.
yeah.
To say, well, okay, why hasn't it?
Yes.
Maybe that will be something that we need
Yeah.
to look at. So as far as the vacants, which are different from, nobody's expecting these vacants to be developed. Does it sound reasonable that we bring a resolution to next week's meeting, or the next regular meeting, authorizing Sam to sell these vacant lots at the best price that he can get for them, or do you want these necessarily all brought to the council for approval?
I'm okay with Sam.
We're talking about the vacant
And
lots
again,
only.
my proposal is to bring it to the council. It's probably gonna be one resolution either way. It's either gonna be a resolution to approve or a resolution to accept these bids, so
Either way, okay.
Okay.
Can
Yeah,
you
it's-
explain it one more time? You would sell them all?
You wouldn't keep coming back to us for individual properties, right?
Well, I think we'd probably, my plan is to open the bidding period and run all the bid periods at the same time, have one bid opening for all of them, and then I would take all the bids that were received to the next council meeting. And in one resolution, we'd list all the bids.
Okay, so we could, the same resolution that I'm proposing, we could just have the council accept all those bids in the same resolution.
So what if it doesn't happen in the first round? You come back again?
Well, if it doesn't happen in the first round, then it sounds like the vacant, or the adjacent property owners aren't interested, in which case we could,
Have to put it on
at
the
that
open
point,
market.
I think we should talk. I mean, we could put it on the market, we could put it on Gov Deals as an option. I mean,
But is that part of this resolution?
no.
No.
What we're talking about tonight is specifically trying to get it to adjacent property owners, someone who's invested, we know will take care of the lot and benefit more than just some investor.
Now, on St. Mary's Lane, Mr. Farr he's living in his home, but the other address is vacant. So, or it was vacant.
Right.
So
And that would-
you're gonna send to that vacant house owner the possibility of buying that lot.
Right. And I know the 10% of assessed value is really low. I'm open to raising that if no one's comfortable, but I think in certain ones, especially like Bermuda, we know we have a lot of interest from both adjacent owners. That's the minimum bid. I think we'll get a little bit higher on some of these. Some of these, we probably will get that minimum.
So I would like to ask Karen or Steve to tell the council about the contractor that came in and did that work on on Blandford.
Basically, his name is Ken, and he's been in business about 35 years. And he bought the houses in pretty rough shape. They had to have mask and to sign a waiver just to go in to view it in order to, before you bid on it. You don't want to bid blind. So he went in and got the house. The house was condemned. So I honestly thought it was going to be tore down. He came in, we watched last summer, the back was in such bad shape, the eve was, that there was a nest of raccoons in there. Literally, there was 4 little ones and 2 adult ones that would crawl out of there onto the roof trying to get down to get food. So it was in rough shape, to say the least. He put a new roof, soffit, gutters, siding, windows, driveway, patio. He put a new porch that's just on the outside. I never seen it until about a week ago because he wanted it to be complete before I seen it. He totally redid the kitchen. We're talking about brand new appliances in there now, stove, icebox, I think a microwave, I could be wrong there. Bathroom was down to the rafters. He took it all out, he gutted it all. He put an extra deep tub in, not a jacuzzi, just a deeper one for the taller people. That way they don't have to have water up to their waist in a standard tub. Then he did the ceiling where he has a light just over the bathtub. So you want to go in there and take a bath, you turn the light on just for that, or the other light would give you the light for the rest of the bathroom. So it's been customized. Floor, he went in and had it professionally, the wood floors professionally done. Sanded them down.
So then this is a house, obviously, and the reason they came to Sam and I about this is a house that's gonna sell to somebody that's gonna live in that house.
Exactly.
Yes.
This is not an investor that's gonna come in and put a renter in it, and that's why they were so excited about
Yeah, his,
making this guy preferred.
Can I mention something?
yes, I'm sorry, Tony, go
I
ahead.
I went around and met the guy, when was that, Sunday?
Sunday.
And I went through the whole house and, you know, I know a little bit about certain things, so I questioned about certain things. The most important things that I looked at was the roof. He redid the electrical, rewired the whole house, and he put in a new furnace and central air unit. Those are the 3 most important things when a homeowner moves in. They don't have to worry about the big ticket items. So that's what impressed me about it.
Well, and I will tell you, there's a good chance at the next meeting you come to, we'll have an offer from this gentleman on a couple of our other properties. And we're not putting them on the open market, we're not getting a real estate agent like we did on some of these, we're just, hey.
Just get rid of
hey, let's, if we got a guy that's willing to do that kind of work. Go ahead, Steve.
But the bottom line is this, his intent is to fix them up to sell them.
Right.
That's his intent, not to rent them out. That's his business in order to sell. His business is not to manage them once they're, so the houses, we've had 2 of them. I think one's up for, you're gonna get 70 to 80 for it probably, would be my guess, or maybe more. So it's definitely the nicest house on the block, and he seems to me that he's committed. That's what he's did. I think anyone that has not seen it just let us know and we will make sure that you could see it.
You seen it.
I'm sold on it, I really am. If you've seen all the work and the care he put in it,
It's a beautiful.
it's very nice. I really like the hardwood floors, by the way. I like the lighter ones. It's not a dark stain, it's a lighter stain, so I like that. My wife don't, but I do. But my point is, there's no one that I know of that's beating the doors down in order, in Ward 1, to do this. And he's doing a really good job, and he's very dedicated at it. And if he's got a question, he's gonna ask. Like, for instance, he asked me about the front window. I said, that window's been on and it's an original window. He went and bought a new front window and a side window for $1,200. Now, there's not another house on the block that's got a window like that, except I may have one because my wife wants one.
David, you had a question?
Yeah,
That house is
my
right across
question-
the street from you.
Yeah, it's right across the street from me, yes.
You gotta step the game up, buddy.
Hey, so my question really is for Sam and possibly even Andy. So, with the vacant lots, if we're selling these, and if by chance we have, someone who wants to build, a new home on it, our building codes, however, are too restrictive because of the size of the lots though, right? They're
It
too narrow.
depends on which neighborhood we're talking about. There may need to be a variance if it's in Burville Hills because of the size of the lots.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so would it be worthwhile eventually to update our building codes to allow for the alternate building of narrower plans and narrower
Yes.
plots?
I would, and more specifically, our zoning codes, the front yard setbacks in Burville Hills are a bit of a problem because in most it's 30 yards to your property line from your front yard, that's what our code says. Burville Hills, every house in the subdivision is 30 feet to the street, which means it's about 15 feet to the property line.
Yeah,
So
that's really narrow.
it's kind of a weird situation, and so we would need to adopt a additional single-family district, but I'd be really happy if we got a building permit for a new house in Burville Hills, but with the current market, I don't see it as imminent.
Okay.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll have some more specific offers for the council to look at our next meeting, because this could happen fast. Any other questions?
Karen,
I just have one question. Sam, you're gonna, tell us what contested meant.
Oh, contested means that there's a clouded title, and so we do not have quiet title on the property, and frankly, it also kind of means we're not interested in getting quiet title because we're probably going to demolish the building.
On 7811 Blanford, is that was someone's living?
Oh, that one's a little bit different of a situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a special.
Yeah,
I'm currently working on that.
Yeah, we can give you an update on that
And
later.
what address did she mention?
Well, let's not.
it's at the
Oh,
top of
got
the list.
it.
Yeah.
Top of the list.
And I would,
Oh, got it, I get it.
the guy who's fixing up the house that we've been talking about, I do want to mention, he's given us an offer for a proposed agreement.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it, but he would like us to donate lots, or donate houses to him. And then he would fix them up and sell them, and we would get 10% of the proceeds of the sale.
Oh.
That's his proposal. And then he also is saying that he's promising that he will sell to owner occupied. But I'm a little skeptical about, he can certainly try, and I do believe he will try, but I don't know if he can guarantee that.
Steve?
One of the reasons why that he wants it that way is that way he can have more finances to put into it. Because the more he could put into it and make it nice, I guess you call it, or appeasing the people who want to buy, the more people are going to want to buy it. That way the one on Blandford, he bought. This has nothing to do with that house. He bought that house, literally from the real estate company. And so we won't get a dime. But that's kind of a showcase on what he does to the houses. If he would pay for it up front, a dollar amount, you would get less in the backside. So it depends on if you want some from the front side or if you want it from the proceeds. I mean,
For me, I think it depends on the condition of the house when we're selling it. If we're selling him a real piece of junk, I think that comes out to be fair. If we're selling him a house that's just a little bit run down, maybe it's worth $20,000, you'd have to sell it for, $200,000. Otherwise, we could have just sold it for $20,000.
Yes, Karen?
Well, the one on Kirkland said it's gonna be torn down. Can we give him a torn down house? I mean, it's,
The one on Kirkland, I would like for him to tour.
right, he saw the house and but if it was deemed to be torn down,
Well, in deemed to be torn down isn't very formal. I know Mayor Beckman has a lot of construction experience.
Those
but that
deemed to
was-
be torn down were my assessment of those houses.
okay.
And that is his field of expertise, but it's, doesn't mean it's not savable, it just means most investors aren't gonna pay for this.
May I? I don't know.
Yes,
Are you talking about 5304 Cortlandt Drive? That it's gonna be torn down?
No, that's,
No, it's
It's
this one.
5340.
yeah, we've got a vacant on
Oh,
Kirkland
it's on the
and a house
second
on.
page. I just need a ticket and where it's at. The other question I have is, so he puts it on the market for $120,000. And in that neighborhood, are people, people can't afford that and it doesn't sell. What do we do then? I mean, so if we donate something, he fixes it, and then the price is too high for people to buy it.
Right, well, I think he would list it at what people would buy it.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
that
he
would
would drop
be
the
his
price
problem.
until someone buys it.
Yeah.
Fix
Yeah,
it
that
up,
would
that's
have
his
to
problem.
Agreed.
Our return would go down as he drops the price.
Yes.
well, let me make one more comment, then we're gonna move on to the next
But
item on the
there's one more
agenda.
street, Mark, though.
Yes,
The 7201 Normandy Place, it's a discussion needed. I know one of those lots is beyond housing and the other is ours. What kind of discussion are you,
I don't know who I could, there's no one adjacent to the lot to bid on it. And so,
well,
kind
if
of,
Justin, I don't know if he'd want it, but Mr. Thomas, the house next to it.
maybe put a football field if you put all the lots.
Well, I know, ideally, to have someone build on it would be an addition to
That-
the neighborhood. What about Habitat for Humanity? What,
Well, that's kind of the discussion that I'm talking about. We either would go that route, or I don't know the feasibility of it, but there's also a vacant commercial lot on the other side of that alley. And if there's some sort of thing where, we're not talking about a curb cut on the Normandy Place, but they do utilize some of that space to make that commercial lot.
in
Well,
our
this is a
original
good opportunity.
conversation, we said no. The Normandy Place residents would not want that property to go into our neighborhood for parking. Remember that in the summer we met?
Yeah,
And then we said, no, that's not our interest. And we know that the neighborhood would just really be against that. So, housing, having a family there, 2 homes, if we give it to Habitat to build, or isn't Beyond Housing, they have a building program too.
last time we talked to Beyond Housing in the summer, they said that they were doing no new builds at the time. I know that they have done that in Pine Lawn.
Well, you know what, at a meeting I was at, Carrington, they said that they are doing building,
Okay, well,
just in the last couple months.
oh, that would be good, yeah, because it's been since the
Recontact
summer.
them.
well, and just, if they build new on those lots, they're not gonna be the houses.
They're not
No,
gonna be.
Sure.
well, but it's a home.
Right,
you know,
right.
yeah.
Okay. And as far as the builder that we were discussing earlier, I made the comment when I first saw the house that the value of every property on that street went up when he got that house finished. Versus, what that house was versus what it is now, every property owner surrounding, their property's worth more now. And that's what people wanna see, yes.
Right, I just look, like, if it were the choice between us taking a hit on a profit and having a homeowner who's gonna stay in the house, be in the house, I would rather take a hit on a profit.
And I'm leaning that same direction.
I completely agree.
Yes.
I would rather have someone who's invested, staying here,
If-
and a family, than we need $5,000 more dollars.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's move on. Discussion of Natural Bridge Street improvements and maintenance. I don't think this is gonna be a long-winded discussion, but we've talked about some options. One is getting I've talked to UMSO, I'm waiting for their response. They move slower than we do. Get an engineer to design planters that complement what we have here, but don't cost $30,000 every time somebody runs into one of them. If we get that design, we take it to the Missouri Department of Transportation, and hopefully they'll approve something like that. We're under contract with them right now that we maintain this as it's designed, and that's just cost prohibitive. We can't do it. So, also, what I want to run by you guys is the medians. There's a lot of plantings in there that just have not been maintained. What I'd like to do with those, with the exception of the fountain and the medians immediately surrounding the fountain, is take out everything, put sod in there, just grass, and our guys can mow it and trim it.
I agree.
So does anybody have an issue with that?
No.
And if not, we'll go ahead and get bids on having it
Yeah,
done. Yes,
because-
Debbie, go ahead.
So aren't we getting plants from MDC, the $8,000 grant or so?
Well, that's
To put
for the
That's for the
roundabout and the
roundabout.
medians immediately around the
Oh, so this is the
roundabout.
other.
So this is the rest of them from here all the way down. And they're dangerous to maintain. I know you put in like 5 hours that day, and it's just dangerous. It's,
Grass, I get it.
yeah, so if nobody has an issue with that,
If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So as opposed to grass, which would have to be maintained by our public works and trimmed, perhaps looking into something like creeping jenny, which
Yeah.
is a one-time deal. You plant it, it self-propagates and it,
Yeah, Angie made that suggestion also when we met down at the,
Oh,
yeah, there's
okay.
other options.
Excellent.
That'll be low maintenance.
Yes, and because
Yeah.
with something like that, or even like thyme or creeping thyme, you plant it one time, it is nice and aesthetically pleasing, it doesn't grow beyond a certain height, you don't ever have to cut it, and it comes back. and-
Yeah, think of something like that.
Right, no, that suggestion was made also, and I'd be very
And it
receptive to
gets a
that.
native plant, and it's
Yep.
gonna benefit the environment. Grass
Yep.
does nothing,
Okay,
does nothing for the environment. It's been researched
so
and proven.
and please text me or send me an email of plants you think would work well there.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, didn't Angie give you some suggestions? I
She
don't know if
did,
it
she had
was-
one specific plant in mind, and I can't remember the name of it
Sumac.
because I'm terrible at that.
Sumac.
Was it sumac?
Yeah, it was like a low-level bush.
Yeah,
But there's other choices, you know.
all right, well, I'll look into that too then. So I'm hearing everybody would be more favorable to a native
Yes.
than just plain grass, okay. All right, I just want to run that by you because like I say, we can't maintain the plants that are out here, it's just, it's a maintenance nightmare. Business license fees and other administrative fees. Excuse me. So, I mean, these fees are antiquated and they need to be raised, but also with the Hancock issue. So, can you help us out on that, Sam? I mean, can we raise it has to go to a vote, probably. If
Well,
we're
that's
gonna
the
raise
short
the-
of it, and you can explain
Yeah.
more if you want. But as far as the fees, And I'm sorry, I was just kind of collecting, I went through a bunch of different codes
Yeah.
today. And so there is a list that's just kind of informal notes. So, but it gives you an idea of what other municipalities in the area charge for their business licenses. We're not that far off. I mean, we're kind of right in the middle of the pack. There are different types of schemes as far as how you calculate the fee, some of which would be more convenient for the business owners and us. I mean, right now we have a gross receipts, which can be hard for specific types of businesses, although most it does apply to. But on this list, you know, we're one for $1,000 of gross receipts with a $50 minimum. There are some on here that use a square foot. There are some on here that do flat fees depending on the type of the business. There are some that scale on the number of employees if it's in manufacturing, which we don't have a whole lot of. But on here you'll see ranging from 65 cents per 1,000 to $1.50 per 1,000. We're not that far off, and increasing it would take to go to the vote of the people, but we're talking about a pretty marginal increase to our revenue and budget. So
So
it's not going to be a life changer.
is your recommendation to leave it alone?
It's up to the council. I know some council members have expressed interest. It's not a bad idea. It's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna be a big game changer.
Did Yolanda have to leave?
She's in the bathroom.
Okay.
So, I think Andy reminded me when, this has to go to vote.
So any increase in a fee like this, a permit fee, yes, must be approved by a vote of the people. And I believe a change in the structure of how the fee is calculated would require a vote as well. So if, again, as Sam mentioned, right now, the city calculates a business license fee as, you know, $1 per $1,000 of gross receipts. However, the city the board has discussed possibly imposing for certain businesses a square footage model, if that would make more sense, given whatever the type of business is. Again, I think moving to that would also require a vote.
Well, and I will tell you, I don't know if there's a great advantage to that either. I've got my business in Maryland Heights, and they use the square footage model.
Mhm.
Well, I've got about a 20 square foot gazebo sitting on the beach, okay? So I pay the minimum $50, so
Right.
they're getting ripped. So any plan you assume, there's always gonna be an outlier, you know?
Right.
Well, and to put it in perspective, around 18,000 is what we bring in annually from our business license. I don't have the budget in front of me, but off the top of my head, it's south of $20,000. Even if we were to have one of the more aggressive schemes in the area, which Northwoods has our same scheme, but double, $2 per $1,000 of gross receipts. If we were to adopt that, we're talking about an additional $18,000.
Okay.
It's not going to fix everything. You know, it's not a huge revenue stream. It would be nice, but then also you have to weigh how expensive do we want it to be to have a business in the city of Normandy. That's the
I got
thing
you.
gotta think about.
So Debbie, you had some specific concerns that are probably more related to planning and zoning than the business license ordinance.
I'm not sure, I'm kind of stuck. So the Hancock law says we have limits, right?
The Hancock Amendment, it's a constitutional, it's an amendment to the Missouri Constitution. It's actually a series of amendments. In short, it requires that, basically in short, it states that a municipality cannot increase a tax rate without a vote. That's the short of it. Now, the details can get really hairy, but But I think for the council's purposes, that's really the guiding light.
Mayor Mark, are you referring to the rental, short-term rental? That would be planning and zoning?
Well, you said, I'm trying to recall, you mentioned business ordinance, and I was under the assumption that this is what some of the council members wanted to address. There was other business ordinance issues, but I think those are gonna fall under planning and zoning, which is a really in-depth plan and discussion. It's not a piecemeal kind of thing. So it's not something that we're gonna have a conversation about in a workshop and work it out. That's gonna have to be a really in-depth, comprehensive plan. And that's something that's gonna have to come with recommendation from the administration after a lot of work.
And that's including the short-term rental. I
Yeah.
guess that was the only example.
Right.
And I remember hearing that the whole planning and zoning needs to be revamped. And anything that will happen has to happen after that, right?
So any change to our zoning regulations is required, there's a procedure for changing zoning regulations is spelled out in the statutes. And that requires, the Planning and Zoning Commission has to consider the proposed change and make a recommendation, which they then send back to the council. And the council considers that recommendation, totally free to ignore it, and then chooses to adopt whatever change, they're considering.
And getting to kind of what I think you're referring to, any change in your zoning code has to be consistent with your comprehensive plan. Now, so that means if right now, that's our general land use plan adopted in 2002. So if the general land use plan identifies a lot as single family, we can't go in and zone that commercial because it's not consistent with the plan. We would have to change the plan first. Is that
But you
right?
could possibly rezone it to a different form of residential, right? Because the comprehensive plan is not going to be as detailed as the zoning code or the zoning maps, right? It's going to kind of, categorize various parts of the city as generally residential or generally commercial, and then within those kind of broad categories, any individual lot can be zoned as residential single-family, residential multifamily, or planned commercial or neighborhood shopping. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
Well, that's what I'm
to this-
remembering from your conversation, is that work needs to be done. And so that's gonna go to a planning and zoning, work.
And it could take a while, but specifically about the short-term rental, I don't think a change to our zoning code regarding short-term rentals would be inconsistent with our current plan. So if that's something that the council finds as a priority and really wants to recommend to planning and zoning, I don't think that change would be inconsistent with the current plan, and we wouldn't have to wait.
Right, because that would not, if the council wanted to consider some sort of regulation or on short-term rentals in residential areas, that would not require a change to, it would not require, like, for example, rezoning any individual parcels. I don't think that would require any major changes that would really implicate the comprehensive plan. That's just adding additional requirements to already existing zoning districts. Still has to go through Planning and Zoning Commission, but there's a little more flexibility there.
And with that said, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So can we make a motion to take it
Well,
to
let me
planning
add to
and
that. With that said, I don't see short-term rentals being a pressing issue in Normandy right now. We've got so many other things on the table that we would have planning and zoning meet and prepare an ordinance. It's just, I don't see where that's pressing over some of the other things that need to be done, quite frankly.
I will say this, Mayor, not to cut against what you're saying, but planning and zoning does already have to meet because the marijuana zoning issue has been referred to
Okay.
them. So it wouldn't necessarily be convening P and Z for one thing if they're already convening.
Are we aware that there is a,
There is on St. Mary's Lane, a short-term rental. I mean, if other municipalities are putting this into place,
yeah,
why not, if it's that easy, just to have
okay.
that, and people do come, more people come in and use their land that way. It's very popular to do this. We'd have some kind of a guideline for them coming in.
Well, what that would require is Sam and Andy working together to prepare some ordinance or specifics and then submitting it to planning and zoning for their approval. Let them have a conversation about it, which can be done.
I don't think
If-
it's all that time consuming.
I don't know.
It depends, well, there would be quite a bit of discussion on what the ordinance looks like, but it's just another ordinance.
It all really depends
It's
on
a
the
copy and
definition.
paste ordinance that we could,
Most likely, I
Yeah.
mean, lots of other cities have adopted this kind of.
This is not gonna go
Yep.
away, it's very
Yep.
popular.
Okay.
And you hear it on the news, issues that happen with these short-term rentals and such. I don't know, I just think,
And is everyone familiar with what short-term rentals are? They're Airbnbs and
Airbnbs.
VRBOs.
I don't really see it being an issue,
Yeah,
because even though you might have one, I mean, we're not exactly a tourist destination within the greater St. Louis area limits. I mean,
well, as we develop, we could be.
Yeah,
I
St.
mean,
Charles is having
Is
it.
this a side conversation?
I'm sorry?
Is this a side conversation?
no, I don't
No?
believe so.
No.
The, anyway, I just bring that up, and so what we're expecting though is planning and zoning to revamp what's currently written to be more comprehensive. Is
I
that,
don't think we,
you were talking about a plan
Yeah.
that needed to be addressed, that there needs to be some work. I'm not familiar with the terminology, but it would sound like there was work that needed to be done, so that'll continue to happen then, and
yeah,
present be
on
brought to
on the
us.
priority list, we're currently planning to start that process in the summer. I know we had spoken about outsourcing certain things that we need to be done. That would be the first thing that I would outsource. I am not a
remember
planner. You know, you can get a certified AICP planner who would be able to do a lot more than what the staff would be able to do here. I think we could manage if we have to, but if we're looking at investing money.
Just to give the council just a sense, to maybe help kind of clarify, the process of developing and adopting a new comprehensive plan is a major undertaking. It could take upwards of a year to accomplish that. So I just want to, I think just the more information always helps paint a clearer picture, and I hope that helps giving a time frame. It's a major undertaking, so.
Okay. So I'd like to hear from the rest of the council. Go ahead.
I had two questions. So where it says other administrative fees, does that include, fines?
Well, I don't think a fine would be an administrative fee, right? A fine is a penalty for failing to obey some sort of directive from the code, as opposed to an administrative fee, which is a fee paid for, I mean, generally an administrative fee, I think, theoretically, is supposed to be kind of tailored towards the costs to administer the application and review of a permit, right? Whereas a penalty is, maybe that's a little abstract. But
Well, to make it less abstract, right now our fence permit fee is $10.
No, I just wanted to know, is an administrative fee is not a fine?
No,
So
an
when will
administrative
we-
fee would be like an application fee for a
So
permit.
when would we discuss fines? Would it be under this heading too?
Is it accurate to say that the state of Missouri sets limits on fines for infractions?
Well, I guess let's maybe try to hitch this discussion to a particular issue. What do you have
So
in
when we
mind?
talked about business licenses, we also discussed nuisance properties and fees that they would incur if they exercised in Normandy without a business license, if they violated these things. And my understanding was that we had to, because it was a cost that they would incur because of the Hancock Amendment, it would be something that we as a council would have to vote on.
So an increase to the business license fee, the application fee, that requires a vote of the people. An increase to the fine, that is not subject to the Hancock Amendment.
That's not.
Because that's a penalty, right? That is just like if for example, I've been working on a draft of an amendment, of an ordinance amending the city's offenses code to prohibit unlawful cultivation of marijuana. That'll be presented to the council sometime soon, hopefully, because now, of course, under the, there is such a thing as lawful cultivation of marijuana now after the Amendment 3. So we want to make sure that we can penalize people who are unlawfully cultivating marijuana, and of course, they will be fined for that. But that, imposing that does not require a vote of the people. Does that make sense?
No, it
Because
doesn't,
it's,
and I'm gonna say why. Because when we passed the business license amendment, or when we changed the ordinances a few months ago, we specifically had talked about changing like how much penalty a business would incur. And I specifically remember talking about what would happen if a business did not, go through the process of getting the license and doing things like that. And the answer that I believe that I was given, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that because it was a fee that we had to, like there had to be like a voting process, and we had to go through this. Because there was also like, we want them to be charged $500 a day. We want them to be charged, and I remember that was not changed in our ordinance because, I thought it was because of the Hancock Amendment.
Yeah, that's what
and I may.
That's what I remember. Because
I may be
I
recalling
had
correctly.
suggestions about it, Tony had suggestions about the fees. I remember that.
I thought the council did increase the fee to up to $1,000.
Yeah,
I didn't think we did.
I thought we did.
I thought.
I can check that
I
out.
don't know.
I thought the new ordinance imposes the general penalty rate,
Right.
which is $1,000,
But in what, okay.
Up
Maybe I
to
got it wrong.
up to $1,000, right?
Maybe I
So
got it
if,
wrong. Okay.
so if someone gets a ticket for unlawful operation, operating a business without a license, that comes before me as the municipal prosecutor. I have, and the judge has, I have discretion to recommend a fine of up to $1,000. The judge has authority to impose a fine of up to $1,000.
So, but that doesn't have anything to do with the Hancock Agreement?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, because it's, I mean, kind of the clearest way I can explain it is a fine or a penalty does not, for not doing something, does not implicate the Hancock Amendment.
Okay.
But a fee applying to get like a permit or a tax, right, that is subject to the Hancock Amendment.
Okay, and then I have one more question. Can we talk when, to each other, when it's about the same thing?
Oh, you're talking about
Yeah,
my
I'm
comments?
confused.
What I'm saying is, if one person's talking at a time versus having conversations.
But can I talk about what you're talking about to Karen and to you while you're talking?
While I'm talking, that's not the way we're hoping it happens. Interrupting you talking about?
I don't know, I'm confused.
All I'm saying
May
is-
I make a suggestion?
Yes.
At a workshop, it's generally a little bit more informal, but at a regular session, we generally should be yielding to the chair for permission.
So we
to
can
speak.
talk now.
Well, you're gonna get permission to talk to Karen about it.
Well, you want to get real
If
bad.
Karen was talking about something, and then I said, oh, I think Karen's right, and we should, and then Karen says to me, oh yeah, you know what, the last time we went to, and then is that okay?
That, at a workshop, it's okay.
Okay.
What I'm saying is when we're in a meeting in front of the public,
Uh-huh.
comments from all the council people should be directed to the chair instead of having conversations between you guys. And before you got here, I just suggested, bring a pad and a pencil. And if you want to communicate with somebody, scribble a note and pass it down. But it's really not the best. We don't present the best when we're having all these side conversations during a meeting.
Okay.
Mayor, if I can.
Please.
And just to add to that, as the person who is also recording the minutes, sometimes, when there's multiple conversations going on, it can be very difficult to hear and try to capture what's going on. So I think it was just in an effort to, maybe quiet it down a little bit so the person who is addressing the rest of the people at the meeting, it can be a little easier to record. Not to mention, if anyone else has any difficulties with hearing here as well, it's easier for you to hear and someone doesn't have to repeat themselves more than once. Yeah.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing, and is everybody in agreement that addressing any ordinance to increase our fees, which would have to go to a vote, is the squeeze isn't worth the juice right now to deal with that?
And let me, if I can clarify the distinction one more time. Specifically with the business licenses, that's considered a tax under the definition of a tax in the Missouri Constitution. Because it comes up every year and they're not really receiving anything in return. Fees are more like inspection fees, permit applications, those type things. Some of which do need to be addressed, some of which I think are okay. And then fines are kind of a whole separate thing from that as well.
So to be clear, fees also need to go to a vote, yes or no?
Well, not always, but
Oh
then,
my
then
God.
we're really getting into the weeds, okay?
Wow.
And I didn't want to get into that because there's
Okay.
a whole complicated, the case law, the Hancock case law is very complicated. There is a six-step
So,
analysis.
any specific fee we want to increase will come to you and ask.
Yes.
Take it by case by case.
Okay, very
Yeah,
good.
you want a case by case
Okay,
basis.
because I think we need to increase our $10 fence permit fee.
Which USDA got away with paying $20,
Yeah, for,
putting a fence up.
oh crap.
So can we have fees, wait, can I talk?
Go ahead.
Can we have fees for, well, how do we, wait, did you say we're going to address this or we're not gonna address this?
What's
What
the
was it
this?
before you said, we're not gonna address it?
I don't know what the this is.
The paper with the different fees.
Oh, I didn't see the fee. I don't have that paper.
What did he just went over?
It's the last page.
Sorry, and I think you stepped out to the bathroom. So I did a little research.
No, you said that this is like how much other municipalities do,
Oh,
but I'm asking him, did he say we're not going to address this now?
Okay, and that might have been the part you missed when you had to step out. Kind of comparing, we're kind of in the middle of the pack. Some have higher license taxes, some have lower license taxes. We're at $1, I
I
think the
get
highest.
that, but I'm
one-
saying, we're not gonna worry about changing anything on ours.
And then the other part is we have budgeted revenue. We expect to receive about 18,000 in merchant license taxes every year.
Yeah,
Let's say we
like
doubled
Northeast
that, we're talking
Arkansas,
about
yeah.
another 18,000. It's not a huge revenue stream. And then balancing that on, taking that to a vote of the people and how expensive do we want it to be for business owners? I'm not necessarily against it.
No, but what I was asking Mark is, you're saying
Right,
We
Sa-
are not
Sam's
going to
recommendation, and I agree.
not to address it.
We don't need to, yeah, right, it's just not worth the,
Does that also include, like you were saying about, the fencing properties and like USDA and all those things?
I'm specifically talking about business
Just for
license
business?
taxes.
Okay.
yeah. Some of those may come with recommendations in the future.
Okay.
And it sounds like every individual one's gonna have to be run by Andy anyway, to see if it's a fee we can raise or one that has to go to a vote, so we can't, there's no general answer.
So
on
Sam
what-
will make a list and bring it to the council as far as fees.
Well, if
Is
there's.
that,
No, we're not addressing it, right?
no, we're not saying that.
Anything that needs a vote, it's just not gonna be worth it. It's not
But
gonna
we're
be
not
worth it.
gonna sit, what I'm saying is, we're not gonna sit down at a meeting and have different fees put in front of us to address this issue, right?
But also then you're saying there are fees that we're gonna look at.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer to your question, because I don't know what fees we're allowed to.
Well, who's gonna generate that then for us to
Well,
look at?
let's, if there's an issue with one, like the fence
So-
permit fee, we can address that.
Here,
Go ahead, Sam.
if I may, so, and Andy might be better to speak on this part. The state of Missouri recently passed a law that just preempted all fencing zoning codes. So we're in need of planning and zoning to reconsider all of our fencing ordinances. And so if we refer that to planning and zoning, they can address that, and in the meantime, address the fee of the fence permit. And that's something we've been meaning to bring up to the council. So that, all we need from the council, either tonight or a future meeting, if you want to consider it, is a vote to recommend the issue of the fencing zoning code to planning and zoning commission for review.
Let's do it. Then you have 3 things to talk
Does
about.
that
at the
make any
next-
sense? All right.
So don't you have to prepare that using the guidelines that state of Missouri just gave us? We have to prepare an ordinance to recommend?
No, I do think that the council can just refer the general question to P and Z, and then P and Z is responsible, with my assistance and Sam's assistance, with crafting an ordinance to send back to the board. But the ordinance doesn't have to be crafted before anything gets sent to P and Z. That's kind of their responsibility, right?
So we've got,
Is to get into the dirt and the weeds.
that's the only one I'm aware of that is a problem right now, is the $10 fence fee. It's silly. You can't send an inspector out there for $10, right? It doesn't cover the cost of sending an inspector out.
I'm hearing 3, the marijuana, the short-term rental, and then now the fencing to go to planning and zoning. Is that what I'm hearing?
The short-term rental, I say that's up to the council. It is staff recommendation that you do refer the fence.
Say again, Sam.
The short-term rental, staff has no opinion on that. You can make your own, if you guys want to refer it, we'll do it. If not, we're not going to touch it. On the fencing, right now, with the state law that passed, when was it, last year?
Yeah, I believe it was last August, the legislature adopted a statute that preempted, it basically stated that basically all local fence regulations are void, and you gotta repass them. So as far as my understanding is we don't have any fence regulations right now. So we need to I looked at our fence regulations, I think they could just be readopted as is. There are additional restrictions that were passed when the legislature decided to do this, but I think our fencing regulations still fall within the bounds, but they need to be readopted nonetheless. But this is a good opportunity for P and Z to look at them and decide whether or not any changes want to be made.
And we can fix that permit fee while we're at it.
Right.
Can the short-term?
And what was the third, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can the short-term rental, conversation be included with the rental conversation?
With the rental conversation?
Yeah,
What-
like nuisance rentals and things of that nature.
So a nuisance, I mean, talking about long-term renters and nuisances caused by that, that's not really a zoning issue, right? That's a nuisance issue, but that would be, that would be applicable to anything. I guess I'm not entirely sure.
So I'm asking, if we start talking about the short-term rentals and like, this is how much you have to pay for a business license, because we don't have that. And then this is how much this is what you need to do if your property, has so many calls, or like we have to contact the owner and you have to be, what do you call it? Cited, blah, blah, blah. Can that be done at the same time as when we're talking about like rental properties that we've been discussing about like what to do with them? Like,
Well, they seem to be two separate issues,
Yeah.
so.
even though they're both rentals?
Well,
Still two separate issues, even though they're both under the rental umbrella?
yeah, because I mean, a short-term rental and the issues that a city faces from a short-term rental is different than issues that arise with regard to, you know, rental properties where you have a long-term tenant who stays in a property, an apartment, for example, for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you know, they're different.
So we would have to address the short-term rentals as a council and not with P and Z?
Short-term, it depends on the proposed regulation, right? I think the most effective and probably only legal way to address short-term rentals like Airbnb is through the zoning code and imposing zoning regulations. I'm not sure the city could impose a business license requirement on a short-term rental. Like, I'm not sure, based on my reading of the business license statute, that the city could say to a homeowner, hey, if you're operating an Airbnb, you need to get a business license. I'm not sure that, certainly, I don't think that the legislature, when they drafted that back in the 30s, were contemplating Airbnb, but I'm not sure the language is broad enough to encompass that. So again, that leaves you with regulating it through the zoning code. Now, regulating long-term rentals, gets a lot trickier because the city's powers are even more limited with regard to that. I'm just not sure what, it may not require, the best way to address potential issues with a long-term renter may not be through the zoning code, and therefore would not need to go to planning and zoning.
So Andy, to be clear, the illegal cultivating of marijuana, is that also a planning and zoning issue then?
It's already been.
No.
Well, sorry.
No, so that, I was just using that as an example. So there is a separate marijuana ordinance that Sam and I have been working on that updates our possession laws, but those are in the offenses code, that's not a zoning issue.
Okay.
Separately, we do need to work on updating our zoning code to address comprehensive, dispensaries and where dispensaries can be located and the conditions under which a dispensary can be located somewhere in the city.
Which has already been recommended.
Yeah, correct. That, at the last meeting, the council did vote to send that to P&Z.
Okay. So should we be voting on these in the form of a resolution to send anything to the planning and zoning, or just a motion and a?
Correct, just a motion, a second, and just a voice vote.
I just need to point out that I put it on the old business because we had this discussion 2 months ago. And then Yolanda gave everyone this. And then I had an interaction with Andy that said, that's a good idea, we can add it to the marijuana. And then Sam, you thought that was interesting and a good idea. Now I'm hearing it's just up to the council. So I just want to reiterate, this is not I am not bringing this without the background of the discussion with the council, interaction with Andy and Sam, and a handout that was given to us. So anyway.
And I want to clarify, I'm not saying that it's a bad legislative idea. It's just a piece of legislation that doesn't affect the administration very much. And so whatever you guys decide to do, I'm indifferent. It's more of a political question. So
I just brought it up based on conversations and interactions. So I just wanted to clarify my involvement in this.
So there's a recommendation that we refer to planning and zoning, the fence permit ordinance. Or is it an ordinance, or just, how should that be?
refer to,
One more time.
what kind of.
What is it exactly that we're, with the fence issue, is it the fence permit ordinance that we refer to planning and zoning?
I think it can be broader than that. I think the council can refer the question of the city's, a reevaluation of the city's fencing ordinances
Okay.
to P&Z. I think that's probably sufficiently broad.
So is there a motion to refer to planning and zoning, a reevaluation of our fence permit ordinance?
Make a motion.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
I need, are we done with this?
We're done with the fencing, she's asking?
Yes.
As far as like the rental properties and like figuring out like how to address the problems that we're having in different, well, all over. When would that be discussed?
What kind of do you have any solutions in mind to specific problems, or would you like to identify problems and then allow us to come up with
Well,
potential
we've all
solutions?
sat up here and talked about different properties that have been a problem. So what I'm saying is, like, when will we talk about those like the apartments, the houses, the domestic violence
nuisance,
issues,
right.
like the nuisances that are happening? When does that happen? If it doesn't happen with planning and zoning, do we have that conversation as a council in workshops? Do we have that conversation, at closed sessions? Like, when do we discuss those things?
I think what she's talking about is what consists of a nuisance property.
Like,
Sure.
we
I can-
haven't addressed.
I can put
Yeah.
nuisance properties on the agenda.
Yeah, like we haven't addressed as a council, like, and part of the reason that I brought this article was because it talked about what, we had this discussion about what a city can legally and cannot legally do. And so the point of me finding this was not just to talk about, oh, this is what we should do for Airbnbs, but like, these are things that we can do as a city, and these are things that we cannot do as a city, and like, penalties that we could, impose on landlords, and property owners and people that inhabit that don't follow the rules. So it wasn't just about Airbnbs. This was just like, can we take parts of this and adjust it to a long-term rental? But my
Well,
other question is,
yeah, that'll be a whole nother subject.
yeah, but my question is like, one, can we do it? And then when do we discuss these nuisance properties and like have a plan for those?
I'm happy to put it on the
Yeah.
next workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be one thing, and in preparation for that workshop, so we can work together on this, I would either identify problems that you would like for us to propose solutions to, or if you have solutions in mind to problems, let us know what those are, and then we'll
So one of the,
investigate the legality and the practicality.
one of the
it.
things that we specifically talked about last time was like, if we
Well-
could, like, say, how much property could be rented, used as rental, and
Right.
Andy was like, no. So,
Did you find that out?
Well,
yourself, or-
let's stick to the agenda. That's gonna be a
I know, but I
a
was
lengthy
gonna say,
conversation.
Andy, Sam said that he was gonna have Andy look at this article, and I just wanted to, you said that you were gonna have him look at it, like you're saying, like,
The percentage of rental.
no, this
versus owner.
article. You said, I'm gonna
And I
have.
did review that
You
article.
did, okay. So I just wanna know, like, next time when we bring it up, like, you've looked at it. Okay.
Right, but again, but again, I guess I did not understand that you were asking about whether or not those solutions could be transferred from the short-term rental context to the long-term rental context. So I could look at it again with that thought in mind.
Oh,
But I
okay.
was looking at it in terms of short-term rental.
Oh,
Which
okay,
again,
yeah.
they're just very different, kind of
Beasts.
different.
Yeah, 'cause I wanted to know if one could be shifted to the other.
Okay, I can, yeah. we can get that.
All right. Moving on. Street parking in Burdell Hills. We discovered there was no parking signs that have gone
They're
missing.
removed, yes.
Well, there's no ordinance to provide for those signs. There's no ordinance that says there's restricted parking at Burdell Hills. So I don't know how the signs ever went up in the first place. So to address,
Signs was there back in the nineties when
I'm just saying, there's nothing on the books, there's no ordinance to provide.
So what are we saying?
There's no ordinance, so if we want that ordinance,
We have to, okay,
We could
we
pass
have
an
to
ordinance
draft.
saying no parking on the north side of the street of Colton or Olean. I think we would maybe want to consider having public hearings.
No, that's only on Burdell Hills, that's not on Colton.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it
No,
doesn't matter
yeah,
the street, yeah.
Say what now?
If there's a certain street that you would like to see no parking on one side, and I think that is maybe something we need to address, especially or maybe it's no parking on one side on Mondays during trash
Waste
pickup days.
management issue, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Waste Management had to reschedule their meeting with us because Josh got sick, so.
So it's kind
we're
of
having
strange,
that
too. So you're gonna tell me that at one time it was like 20 signs from the top of the hill all the way to the bottom. And a certain mayor took them out.
Who took them out?
Patrick
Really?
Ray. Yeah.
You know what street it
It was,
was?
Bellwood. That's the only street.
On Bellwood?
Yeah.
Well, Sam did some research. He couldn't find any ordinance that
On the.
allowed for those
south-
signs to be there.
South side of Bellwood.
So in the traffic code, there are tables that list out, for example, table 4B lists all the streets that there is no parking allowed on at any time. And for example, on Arcola Drive, you cannot park on the west side of Arcola Drive for the entire length at any time, right? That's in the code. And so if there was a street that the council wanted to add some sort of parking restriction to, there's also another table for parking restrictions between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's just as simple as adopting an ordinance to add it to the table,
Yeah.
right? It's very, very simple.
But what you guys gotta realize too, Burdell Hills was incorporated into Normandy in the mid-80s, right? So they probably had their own codes at the time.
That would be a good
That's
theory.
what-
That's probably
Yeah.
the most reasonable explanation.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Is
saying.
they dropped their codes and adopted
And
Norway's
adopted
codes.
Interesting.
Yeah. But right now, there's nothing on the books that allow for those no parking.
Maybe whoever put those signs up had a good reason to do it.
One of the signs was getting old and this person felt there was too many signs. But I mean, they was all up and down on the south side of the street, so they took a few of them out. But
So do you have recommendations and what, I mean, it's narrow streets.
yeah.
So are you recommending?
Yes, I'm recommending it, yeah.
Because, like Sam suggested, if we're gonna do that, we should at least notify the people that live on those streets
Right.
that it's gonna be discussed at whatever particular meeting we discuss it
Should we
at.
also look at the other streets, especially the ones behind?
And there's also
Bethesda?
Stanwood too.
by church.
Behind the church, because those
Oh,
streets are
yeah.
very
Skyview
narrow.
Terrace. Yeah.
What is it?
Neighborhood of Skyview Terrace.
Yeah,
Subdivision.
like, do we just wanna do one area? I think it would be,
I don't think, from my experience, they're not nearly as narrow as Burdell Hills.
it's pretty narrow, the one when we drove
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
I don't see how, I mean, at least because of we just had the issue with waste management where you don't park on this side of the
Yeah,
street.
and you know, what I'm also looking at, there's no houses that face that side of the street. You know what I mean? So if you're coming down Stanwood or either Bellwood, there's no houses facing on the opposite side of the street. So nobody has a house on that side of the street. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. I'd have to
Yeah.
drive it again.
He's
Right,
talking about
because-
If they
the
don't-
two wedge streets.
Yeah, the two-way street.
Yeah.
So if you're coming down Bellwood, there's only residential homes to the left. There's none to the right.
No
Same
front
way.
yards to the right.
Yeah, no front yards.
Oh, yeah.
Same way with Stanwood. So if you go around Stanwood, there's only residential houses to the left and none to the right.
Okay.
So that's why,
Those side yards, you're right.
yeah, there's side yards.
Okay.
So you're saying if they put the no parking on that side of the street from Stanwood to Bellwood, that would give Waste Management the.
Exactly.
Well, like was suggested, if we're gonna do that, we should
Well, let's do
schedule a
public
public hearing and let the people in the neighborhood have some voice in that, because
Quickly.
I will, yeah, because if you put up no parking signs and the guy that's got 3 cars has 2 of them in the driveway and he can't put his 3rd one anywhere, then he gets real mad real fast, so. But I'm not saying, it's something that you should probably have the public
Make it
involved.
annoying.
You should probably have the public involved in it.
Yeah, that's fine too,
Yeah.
but you know, it was always no parking on both sides of the street. And they also had fire lanes, you know, at one time.
So, I'll get with you for a specific plan on what you're proposing.
Okay.
And then we'll bring it to the public. And we can do that, that won't take time.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that was, like, anything else on the parking issue?
Are we only addressing the
Well, that was where like I said, I was hoping to have some information from Waste Management if they considered it an issue, but that meeting was canceled. So,
I think Skyview Terrace may not be a bad idea. I didn't look if we have anything on the books already ahead of this meeting. I know the subdivision of Spotless Town, which is Santa Monica and San Diego, is pretty well regulated already with the parking in the one-way street. But if there's another neighborhood or subdivision that you think needs to be addressed, I think we should hit it all at one time.
Do you want me to email you then, or?
Yeah, do you have an,
It's literally just Circle Drive in Marietta,
okay.
because, mostly because of the curvature, which leads to blind spots, which going both directions.
It is bad.
And you
It's
got
bad.
multifamily apartments as well.
Yeah.
Correct, and then for pedestrian access, at least, I know when I'm walking my daughter, either through Circle Drive or Marietta, depending on the direction I'm walking, I want to walk towards incoming traffic as opposed to
Right.
walking along traffic. Or if, our police officers are trying to respond to a call and they're trying to cut through, that gets really hairy very fast on a very narrow street with very, very tight curves. They're not tight when it's, no cars parked there, whatever, but people need parking and they do park there, and that's fine, they all park on one side of it.
Right.
But on occasion, maintenance trucks impede the way right at the apartments on a regular basis, so.
all right.
Is it possible to have Josh, like,
Virtually.
drive around and let us know, like, what streets would be advantageous to have no parking on this side on Monday?
I think
Or,
what maybe is to talk to Josh, Brian, and the supervisors and get a sense from their drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stan may be a better person for that chore.
but just to have somebody from Waste Management come and say, like, the reason why we didn't go down this street was because of this, so that we have like citizen input and also input from Waste Management also.
Yeah,
Public hearing, when the residents are concerned or questioning, Waste Management can say, this is the reason why. Your garbage and your recycle wasn't picked up. And-
Just so, yeah, all the stakeholders have input too, because they might not be the only truck that we might make it our own trucks, and we still need to have that in mind, you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, that's a grand idea, have some rep from, and I was hoping to have some input from Waste Management on this, but it didn't happen. At this time, I'm looking for.
Mayor Beckman?
Yes.
I apologize for not thinking of this ahead of time, but I think we should probably amend the agenda to have an extension for a Cool Valley, consideration of an extension of the Cool Valley contract.
Is there a motion to amend the agenda to discuss the Cool Valley Police Services contract?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead, Sam. Sam stayed at the Cool Valley meeting again this week till probably 11 o'clock this time.
Midnight. It was midnight again.
Was it midnight again? I couldn't go this time. I was too sick to be there, so. Anyway, I'll let you explain.
Cool Valley, and we can discuss further if we want to discuss contract issues in closed session details. But last night, Cool Valley asked us to enter into another 30-day extension for police services at the rate of $39,877. That would take, sorry, a month-long extension. This will take them to March 28th. They've signed, and we've kind of preemptively signed with the caveat that subject to council approval. So we're looking for council to approve another 30-day extension. They're going to issue another RFP They had an RFP, they got some bids from other policing services, or policing agencies. I think the bids came in higher than what they were looking for, so now they're issuing a new RFP with reduced services, and hoping to get some lower prices.
So the $39,000 is the old rate, which is higher than what we were gonna bid the new contract at, so it's,
And
we're not
the
getting
reason,
hurt.
and the reason why we're going down is because they are asking for reduced services. Previously, they had a dedicated detective, a dedicated car, they were their own beat. Under the new scheme, which would save us some manpower, they would not have those things.
What would they have?
They'd be part of,
Customer service.
part of the sector from.
The North Normandy sector, they would be wrapped into that.
Did that, so they still owe us $400,000, right? So how does that work into creating another contract? Are they gonna be able to pay?
Is this something we should address in closed
Well,
session?
I
Oh,
would
I'm
say
sorry.
that's, I mean,
Sorry.
that is being.
No, that's okay, we'll just
thought-
find out.
It's being thought about, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
being considered, it's being addressed, but yeah, I don't think we ought to discuss that in an open session. I think just in general, right now, while the rest of everything else gets addressed and shakes out, there's just the question of the extension to allow Cool Valley to continue receiving Normandy police services for the next, what, month? 30 to 30 days or something.
Yeah, what I'm asking for tonight is approval for an extension of 30 days.
Is this?
What's your opinion about it?
I think we should enter into the extension and not bid their RFP until we're satisfied.
Satisfied with what?
With our possible,
Our
Yeah, and until they pay us.
things,
Until we've been
our
paid.
details.
Until we've been paid, we're not gonna submit a long-term bid. And if you would like to know more details, we could always recess the open session and come back and vote on this. I mean,
I
Can
have a
we do
question,
that?
but I don't know.
Can
if
we,
I
can we
ask the
recess?
question.
We can discuss this in a closed session.
Yeah, this is
I think that
illegal.
would be perfect.
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll take it into closed session.
The vote can be taken in closed session as
Okay,
well.
let's
It's
just
that-
go into closed session.
All right, is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss legal and personnel issues?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Saxonheimer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cleveland,
Yes.
Councilman Evans, oh, sorry, Councilman Hahn,
Yes.
Councilwoman Lasso,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Campbell,
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Leave.